Hi guys, in the edition of the Team National Championship of Serbia, there was an incredibly interesting game between Hovhannisyan, who is rated 2600, so a strong Grandmaster, against Robert Markus, also a Grandmaster from Serbia, rated around 2560. And Robert Markus used to be rated 2670 at his peak, so an incredibly strong and experienced Grandmaster. And Robert Markus is currently, or at least it seems so, shifting his repertoire towards something new, and he played the French. Let's see how Hovhannisyan outplayed him. White plays first e4, black responds e6. And now white could go for d3, and we have taken a look at this in the game of Georg Meyer. I will leave you a link in the description, so if you like to watch the video, you can do that after watching this video or jumping just as you wish. So in this game, Robert Hovhannisyan decided to play d4, then came d5, and now white has a variety of different variations leading to very different positions. e5, knight d2, the exchange variation. But white decided to go for knight c3, and Markus, the Serbian Grandmaster, played bishop to b4, and this was hardly a surprise for Hovhannisyan because Markus had played this move earlier, according to the database. So white went e5, and black played c5. This is the absolute main line, and now white played a3. Black could go bishop a5, but this line is very tricky. For example, b4, this pawn sacrifice should not be accepted because of knight b5. B takes a free check, c3, and now black has a very big issue on d6. So for example, knight to e7, knight to d6 check, king f8, queen h5. And until knight to d6, this was played by a very young Vishy Anand, who later became the first Indian Grandmaster and the first and only Indian world champion so far. But let's go back and see what Markus played. Markus played bishop takes c3, check. So white is forced to take back. B takes c3, and now the very modern knight e7. White has again a variety of moves. Markus had faced this h4 against an amateur player, and h4 has been frequently played by players like Caruana, so very strong players. There are also Ding, Nepo, and Aronian who had applied it earlier. So a4 played, and now black plays a very rare move, bishop to d7. White responds with knight to f3, and black plays bishop to c6. Had black played queen to a5, this had been a transposition. So we had arrived in another opening, basically, opening variation of the Vinava French. So bishop c6, and as we will see later, this bishop isn't very lucky on c6. Bishop a3, knight to d7, bishop takes, and black is speculating that he will regain the pawn. And indeed, black could just castle, and after h4, queen h5, queen to d4, bishop d7, black would be fine. This pawn is very weak and probably very soon lost. After rook c8, for example. But let's go back. Instead, Markus decided to play knight to g6, and now white got the chance to play queen to d4, just defend the pawn, f6, and white is going to give the pawn back, but he uses his time to play bishop d3. Knight takes e5, knight takes e5, f takes e5, queen takes e5, everything pretty much forced. Queen f6, trying to exchange queens, f4, d takes e5, f takes e5. And the astonishing thing in this position is that black should be very careful because he could be easily lost in a couple of moves, and we will see how. So black castles, white pushes the pawn. Queens are exchanged, but still white is going for the space, or at least it looks like white is going for the space. He had something different in mind. So rook f4, and now came the idea a6. So a4, a5, a6, and suddenly we can see that either this pawn or this pawn are going to be passed pawns. So the a pawn is going to be a passed pawn after black plays b6 and c takes b6, a takes b6, king to d2, check, king e3, and the pawn is defended by the rook, but the other rook here doesn't do much yet, so just rook h, b1, and the pawn on b6 is lost. Bishop attacked, very bad position, so for example d4 check, c takes d4, rook takes h2, queen takes b6, completely lost for black. So instead, black played rook to g4, attacking the g2 pawn, and white just castled. Now white had to deal with d4, but he just responds with g3, and this is the reason. So there is an attack on g2, and this is probably the reason why black went for this line, but he might have missed something, maybe the push of the a pawn. So d takes c3, and now rook f2, b1. The position is completely lost for black. B takes a6, rook takes a6, and as mentioned earlier, this pawn here becomes a passed pawn. So bishop to d5, rook to d6, h5, c6, and black resigned. But let's take a look why black actually resigned. So c6 and bishop takes c6 is obviously lost. Black is down a piece for a pawn. This is not going to be defendable. But for example, bishop to e4, c7, bishop takes d3, and now white just ignores the bishop for the moment, plays rook b8 check, and black cannot take because of pawn being promoted to a queen. This is very unpleasant. So let's say king h7, rook takes d3, rook takes b8, and still queening, and white is completely winning. I was very delighted to see Hovhannisyan winning against the French, as mentioned before, because I always struggled. But to be honest, the Vinava, at least for me, turns out not to be such a critical line. What is your opinion? Should black play the classical variation or the Vinava? Please tell me your opinion in the comment section. See you.